Alrighty, let's get her started. Welcome in everybody to the Lucky Shots podcast, our first game day morning live. Pretty excited. Glad you all can join for the very first one. Go ahead and start dropping comments. Get all those questions in. We're gonna run through some news and all of that to begin with. Some people who are in, some people who are out. So according to Adam Schefter, some of the guys that are going to be in, Russell Wilson will be in this week, Aaron Rodgers, Dawson Knox, Zach Moss, Michael Gallup, Eric Ebron, Christian McCaffrey, all those guys should be full goes this morning and throughout today. Other guys that are out, you got Bradley Chubb, Demetric Felton, Damian Harris, Alvin Kamara, Antonio Brown, Rob Gronkowski, Curtis Samuel, Chase Claypool, Jamal Williams, Chris Carson, and Chase Edmonds. So all those guys are going to be out. Julio is also going to be out. He was just placed on IR yesterday. Robert Woods, if you haven't already seen the news, he is going to be out for the remainder of the season. Kind of a tough break right there for Woods and that whole organization, but they do have Odell, so he should step into that role at some point. Kind of on Odell, he's mostly only going to be in punting situations. They will try to get him on the field, get some other work in out of him, but it's gonna be not a lot to start out for this very first week. Ben Roethlisberger was just put on the COVID list yesterday, so Mason Rudolph is going to get the start. Dwayne Haskins was also activated, so maybe at some point we will see him as well. Kind of big one right here. Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, not likely to play, likely to be out this week. James Robinson, though, with his heel injury, he is going to be in, according to Ian Rappaport. Chris Godwin is expected. Ramondre Stevenson should play, as should Keenan Allen. And Cam Newton just re-signed with the Panthers, so he possibly could see the field a little bit. They might bring him in for some certain packages, might, get him worked in a little bit. But, I mean, P.J. Walker, honestly, I think should be the guy. And if you are playing P.J. Walker, or if you're thinking about playing Cam Newton even, I mean, you shouldn't. But I think P.J. Walker, honestly, this week, hopefully Cam Newton doesn't cut into it at all, but P.J. Walker could be a very sneaky guy to get you a few fantasy points this week if you need to take a flyer on somebody. Some other news for players. We mentioned Zach Moss will be playing. Cedric Wilson, he's still questionable. He's a game time call, but if he is in, how's that going to impact everybody else on that Dallas offense? I wouldn't start Cedric Wilson at all. I'd go ahead and keep him out. But also on the Cowboys, Greg Zuerlein is going to be out. They've got a new guy. I have no idea how you say his last name. So they got a new kicker. So if you had Greg Zuerlein, possibly you can go get him. Let's see. Damian Harris is out. And then, again, Ramondre Stevenson should play. But if not, it's going to be a heavy dose of Brandon Bolden, some J.J. Taylor. So those are some running backs possibly you're going to have to throw in there without those guys in. N'Keal Harry is also questionable, as is Jonnu Smith. But this Patriots passing game is not very good, and I wouldn't trust any of those pieces in my lineup. So probably don't put any of those guys in as well. Zach Wilson's still out, so Mike White is going to get the start today. Corey Davis is questionable, so, is Elijah Moore going to have another big week if Corey Davis doesn't play? saw him get really involved last week, a couple of touchdowns. It looked like he was kind of the favorite target of either Josh Johnson or Mike White. Hopefully Mike White, we get to see a whole game out of him again. But if not, I guess the Jets are in capable hands with Josh Johnson. As we mentioned, Chase Claypool's going to be out. Antonio Brown's going to be out. De'Ami Brown for the Washington football team, he's questionable. You've got Adam Humphries and DeAndre Carter that will be the other guys next to Terry McLaurin if De'Ami Brown isn't in. But honestly, if you're going to really comfortably start any of the Washington receivers, it's obviously going to be Terry McLaurin. But, Humphries has been getting involved, so he's maybe somebody, if you need a last-minute flex, that you can go ahead and try to throw in there. But, again, I wouldn't really trust a whole lot. And my own kind of idea of a start-sit question right now would be, if you have Antonio Gibson and you have J.D. McKissic, which one should you roll out over the other? Honestly, in this game, Tampa Bay does not give up a lot on the ground. And what happens with Washington when they get behind and they need to throw the ball a lot? It's a lot of J.D. McKissic. So if you're having troubles with either one of those two guys, I think you can go with J.D. McKissic, be comfortable with him over Antonio Gibson. And that's the way I would go if I had to make that decision. I mean, Gibson's great, but in the kind of game this should be with Tampa Bay going up, I think you're going to get a lot more work out of J.D. McKissic than you would out of Antonio Gibson. Some guys like Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram's going to be in instead of Alvin Kamara. So, he's kind of an option where you're like, okay, he should, overtake the Alvin Kamara role. Even last week when Kamara was in for, a majority of the game, 4 yards a carry for Ingram. He had 7 targets. So just translate that to an entire game. I think he's going to get quite a bit of work. So he's somebody you could probably, put in as a flex. I am in the current situation of Keenan Allen being questionable, not knowing whether or not he's going to play. So, guys like Mark Ingram, even Van Jefferson, which one of those guys do you really think you should put in over Keenan Allen if you're not comfortable with Keenan Allen actually getting in? I like Van Jefferson. I am a fan of Van Jefferson. And, with a limited role out of Odell, at least for this week, I think, you can go with Van Jefferson. You can be happy with the amount he's going to get. I think, he's had a healthy target share as the number 3 receiver on that team. And, if he bumps up to number 2, you should see at least the same workload, if not a little more. But I don't know, it's kind of just tough to think right there. Mike Williams is also a guy that he's been really on a slide. So do we trust him going into this week? You feel like you would, especially if Keenan Allen is going to be out or even limited. You would think Mike Williams should go ahead and go in, get a healthy target share, should be good for the week. But, he's got straight weeks of just kind of duds. 5 targets and 2 receptions for 3 straight weeks. No touchdowns. Just not scoring you a lot of fantasy points. And can you trust that? Are you going to sit around for another week and just hope that he goes in and puts points up on the board for you? Say you have Josh Jacobs, Cortland Sutton on your bench, and that's maybe what you would think about putting in instead. I'd put in Josh Jacobs. I think he's going to have a good week. Kansas City's defense is atrocious. Anybody can really move the ball against them, and we've seen that throughout the year. So that's kind of where I would be with that. Again, if you have Alvin Kamara still in, you definitely need to get him out. He's not playing today. Again, I talked about, if Ramondre Stevenson isn't in, Brandon Bolden is going to be that guy. And we've seen a decent week or two out of Brandon Bolden. So again, without a main guy in there, Damian Harris isn't going to be in. If Ramondre Stevenson isn't there, it's a running back by committee, but there's only really 2 running backs left, being Brandon Bolden and J.J. Taylor. So I think you can play Bolden this week. I mean, it is against Cleveland, so that's a tough matchup. But, I mean, look at what have we seen from the Patriots? It's just been mostly their running backs offensively doing something for them. Their passing game isn't all that great. They don't do a lot with it. Mac Jones, he's all right, but doesn't go out and, put up more than 200 yards per game. So the running backs there could be all right. If you're thinking about Michael Carter, I mean, if you don't have anybody else, you obviously have to play him. But if you have the choice, he's going against Buffalo this week. And, Buffalo just lost last week. But it was, 3 field goals from Jacksonville? I mean, offensively, they were not really moving the ball. I don't know. I wouldn't want to play somebody against the number 1 defense in the league if I could help it. But again, if you got to roll out with Michael Carter, I guess, go for it. Guys like Jerry Judy. What do we do with Jerry Judy this week? It's going to be his second full week back. Last week, he was pretty involved, but I mean, we saw Tim Patrick go out there and he was really the guy. He caught a big touchdown, but you also have Cortland Sutton there. You also have Noah Fant. Like, there's a lot of mouths to feed without really all that much to go around. You know what I mean? Like, the Broncos offense, they just don't throw the ball around enough to supplement all of those guys. So are you willing to start all of them with the chance that it's not your guy this week? If you put in Jerry Judy, how much is it going to kill you if it's Tim Patrick again this week? Or if you put in Patrick and it's Judy? Or if you put in Patrick and Judy and it ends up being Sutton? Or you put in any of those receivers and Noah Fant goes out and he gets all of the targets? I mean, realistically, you can probably maybe expect 10 points out of any of them comfortably. But who's going to be the guy with the touchdown? Who knows? That's kind of where you are with Tampa Bay as well. Godwin's expected to play. AB is going to be out. So I think you can play Evans and Godwin both with plenty of confidence this week. They're the 2 main wide receivers, so there's a good chance both of them in a matchup that they're in can go out and both score a touchdown, maybe 2 for one of them. So those are guys that you definitely could be confident in. Pat Freiermuth, do we still believe in him? He was the number 1 tight end in fantasy last week, but Eric Ebron's going to be back. So how much of an impact is that going to have on Pat Freiermuth, who has been very consistent over the past few weeks without Eric Ebron in? 7 targets, 6 targets, and 3 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks, with 2 coming last week. So I think you still got to roll with Pat Freiermuth. I mean, the Muth has been Luth, so got to roll with him. Eric Ebron could cut into that, but there's also no Chase Claypool, so there's those extra targets that got to go around. I still think Pat Freiermuth is an okay rollout for this week. And then we've talked about this Denver offense. Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon. which one do you trust more? Javonte's obviously the better back, but it's been Melvin Gordon going and getting the touchdowns. So, last week, Williams, he went out, had a 100-yard game, looked fantastic, ran the ball well, but didn't get in the end zone. And, if you played him, it was great to get 11 points. But that touchdown really would have helped so much. But they just continued to go to Gordon down in that situation. Gordon's got 2 straight weeks with a touchdown, and, Javonte does not. If Javonte goes out and gets a touchdown, that's a huge week. Your running back is set. That's a huge week for you. I personally have to roll out Javonte this week, and I'm kind of nervous. I know and I'm confident that Javonte is the better back. He's going to go out, have the better game, but when is he going to get a touchdown? His last touchdown was week 7. It was a receiving touchdown. So, again, we talked about all of those targets that there's not enough to go around to feed them. Is Javonte also going to get that? Do you bet on a Melvin Gordon touchdown that it's been the last 2 weeks? Or do you take the chance on Javonte, who is obviously going to be the better running back? I lean Javonte either way. It's tough, and if we're betting on Broncos, what does our fantasy season come to? How much impact do we think Donovan Peoples-Jones is going to have this week? 2 straight weeks of just some deep bomb touchdowns, and, it was only 3 targets last week, but he had that big-time touchdown catch. He also had one against Arizona. He didn't play against Denver. He didn't play against Pittsburgh. But I would be more confident in him than, honestly, anyone else for the receiving core of the Browns. I think, honestly, it's going to be a heavy dose of Dearness Johnson this week, whether it's on the ground, through the air. There's no Nick Chubb. There's no Demetric Felton. There's no Kareem Hunt. It's just Dearness Johnson back there. So I think he's going to get an absolutely heavy workload this week. And the last time we saw him get any sort of heavy workload, he shredded Denver for, 20-something points. So he's probably the play of the week this week. Let's see. Do we play Adrian Peterson this week? It was his first week last week. Came in, 10 carries, 21 yards, had a catch, got into the end zone. A 6-point touchdown with a few points sprinkled on top. If you honestly just need 10 points out of your running back with a small possibility of more, then I think you can roll out AP, but you definitely can't expect, a top 10 running back week out of him. But, if you're rolling AP, go ahead, roll AP. That's it's a flyer, and it could happen. How much impact do these Seattle receivers have now for your fantasy team now that Russ is back? Russ is playing, as is Aaron Rodgers. I think, you can... I think it's going to be a week for Tyler Lockett to kind of get back on track, not have everybody hate him for, being a 1-week wonder, 2-week wonder. I think Russ comes back. They're going to be very pass-heavy because Chris Carson still is not back. And, in a game against the Packers where you've really got nothing to lose if you're Seattle, I think we could just see them try to air it out for a lot of the game. And on the Packers side, Aaron Rodgers is back in, so you can obviously play him with confidence. But what we've seen from Green Bay has been just mediocre, keep it close, pretty low scoring. Oh, look, we got the win 24-17. It's going to be interesting to see what Green Bay has to do offensively today if Russ and Seattle just start airing it out and they go out and score, 28. Will Green Bay be able to keep up with that? I think Aaron Rodgers can turn it on at any time. He's got Devontae Adams, MVS, Robert Tonyan, I believe. No, Robert Tonyan is not in. Aaron Jones, though, they've got all the weapons to keep up with people. We just haven't had to see them do that yet. Even when they were against Arizona, it wasn't really a shootout game. It was still under 50 points. So Green Bay just has that kind of power to keep games close, keep them not super high scoring, and pull out a win. So it's going to be interesting to watch. Let's see. And if we do have anybody that's got questions, go ahead and toss those into the chat as well. If, you've got your own start-sit questions that you need answered. Do we play Matt Ryan this week? It just depends on who your other quarterback is. Hopefully, if you're a Joe Burrow owner, you were able to go get Matt Ryan, because that would be huge. I would love to play Matt Ryan this week. He's had 2 really good back-to-back weeks. Get it pulled up here. Okay, I'm just kidding. He didn't have a good week against Carolina, but 2 weeks ago against Miami, he had a 300-yard, 2-touchdown game. Last week against New Orleans, had a 300-yard, 2-touchdown game. And if you even go back to week 5 against the Jets, 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. The team doesn't have Calvin Ridley, but Kyle Pitts has really stepped up. Cordero Patterson has stepped up absolutely everywhere on offense. And, against Dallas, who you can throw the ball against Dallas. Every once in a while it might get intercepted. Trayvon Diggs is an absolute stud. But I think you can go out, play Matt Ryan this week, and have a little bit of confidence. He's shown, honestly, quite a bit of consistency over the past 4 weeks. Didn't have, that great of a week against Carolina, sadly enough, because Carolina is just not very good. And then speaking of Carolina, what do we expect from them? CMC is back. You got to expect CMC is going to be, up top 5 running backs, just pure volume as it is. But with PJ Walker in, possibly getting Cam Newton in there at some point, I really hope we don't see a lot of Cam Newton today. I'd love to see what PJ Walker can do. And I said it last week before we knew all the news of Darnold actually being out, that I honestly would love to see an offense of PJ Walker and Christian McCaffrey. I think those two can very well complement each other. And, it kind of opens up the playbook, gives them, gives McCaffrey more free reign, and gives PJ Walker, kind of a sense of freedom. And honestly, you don't have anything to lose if you're PJ Walker. So just go out there and play, and I think that's what he's going to do. I think Christian McCaffrey is going to benefit from it. Hopefully it gets DJ Moore up and going again. He had a great start to the season. Hasn't been all that great, the past couple weeks. But hey, maybe a change of quarterback changes that around. Sam Darnold has just proved he's the same old guy. He's not good like he made everybody think apparently at the beginning of the year. I was one of those people. But PJ Walker, I think, is a great option. I just really hope, guys, we don't see a lot of Cam Newton. Let's see. James Robinson. How much do we trust James Robinson this week? He is in. It's been a heel injury. It's kept him out a while. Going up against Indy, who's number 3 against running backs. Just it doesn't seem like a good matchup, but obviously James Robinson's the best player for that team. He, can pretty much do anything. So you got to plug him in, I think. Depends on who your other running backs are, I guess. But James Robinson, I think he's just he has to have a big week just because it's Jacksonville. The other weapons on the team just haven't proven to be much. Trevor Lawrence, speaking of Jacksonville, I'm not even sure who their starting quarterback is right now. Let's take a look at that. Jacksonville. Okay, looks like Lawrence is going to play this week, so if it wasn't, it's going to be C.J. Beathard, so that wouldn't have been good. But Trevor Lawrence honestly hasn't been all that great either. But Jacksonville's just a mess. But hey, they got the win last week against Buffalo, so they can't be all that bad. If you're in a tight pinch, do you play Mason Rudolph? Give me Mike White over Mason Rudolph. Give me Colt McCoy even over Mason Rudolph. Give me P.J. Walker over Mason Rudolph. I don't trust Mason Rudolph all that much, and how much is he really going to do? I mean, it is against Detroit. Detroit's not all that great, but the way the NFL's been, and Pittsburgh doesn't have their starting quarterback, do we see another upset this week and see Detroit win? God, I really hope not, but it's a high possibility. The NFL's been absolutely bonkers the past few weeks. I'm not a fan. Yuck. Some last guys. Rondale Moore. So how much impact do we see him having this week if D-Hop isn't in? I mean, he was involved last week. I think they're also getting A.J. Green back, which Alzheimer's, Jones, I don't know. I was trying to make something with the A.J. for the A.J. Green, but after his brain fart a few weeks ago of just not understanding what play they were running, I think Rondale Moore, you might as well just take a shot at him. I mean, he can be heavily involved. He's a very good, very talented player, but it just hasn't really materialized into anything. He had that huge week against Minnesota in week 2, and then hasn't broke 10 points since week 5 against San Francisco. Just not heavily involved. Hopefully this week, if there is no D-Hop, which it's looking like there's not going to be D-Hop or Kyler Murray, hopefully you can get Rondale Moore worked in, because that's honestly what anybody would like to see. But yeah, I think that's going to do it today, guys. Good luck in all your matchups. Make sure go check your lineups. Make sure that somebody's not a surprise out, that you have taken out some of these guys who are definitely going to be out. And good luck. Go out, win some games. Unless you're playing against me, then definitely don't win some games. But thanks for joining, everyone, and we'll see you. Wednesday. We'll see you on Wednesday.